Hello everyone, welcome to Graceful Faith, where we explore the wonders and mysteries of the Bible together. Today, we're going to discover something really special. Have you ever wondered what happens if you look at God? We're going to uncover 6 secrets from the life of Moses that help us understand this. Stay with me until the end, because I'm sure this reflection will touch your heart deeply. Moses is a fascinating figure and full of powerful lessons. His story is full of incredible encounters with God, and today we're going to explore some of them to discover what it really means to look to God. Secret 1, the divine call. Exodus 3:4. God called to Moses from the burning bush, and he answered, "Here am I." Let's delve into this extraordinary moment in the life of Moses, one of the Bible's most iconic leaders. When Moses was shepherding his father-in-law Jethro's flock, he came across an impressive sight, a burning bush that would not be consumed. This divine manifestation marked a turning point, not only in Moses' life, but in the history of the people of Israel. The first lesson here is about the ability to recognize and respond to God's call in our lives. Moses could have ignored the vision. He could have turned away in fear or disbelief. However, he chose to approach and investigate. This act of curiosity and willingness to approach God is something we can all learn from. Often, divine signs and calls appear in our lives in unexpected ways. They may not be as dramatic as a burning bush, but they are just as significant. They can be a lingering feeling, advice from a friend, or even a door that opens in a surprising way. The key is to be attentive and willing to stop and listen carefully. When God called Moses by name, Moses promptly replied, "Here I am." This simple but powerful response demonstrates a willingness and openness to God's purpose. Moses was saying, "I am here, I am willing, I am ready to listen and follow whatever you have for me." This readiness to hear and respond to God's call is crucial for all of us. How many times does God call us and we are so busy or distracted that we don't even notice? Or maybe we do, but we hesitate, afraid of the changes that this call might bring. The story of Moses teaches us that responding to God's call requires courage and faith. Moses had doubts about his ability. He was aware of his own weaknesses and failings. He even tried to reason with God about his inadequacy. But God doesn't choose the capable, he empowers the chosen. God assured Moses that he would be with him, that he would give him the words to speak and the signs to perform. This divine guarantee is a reminder that when God calls us, he also equips us with everything we need to fulfill his will. Furthermore, Moses' call shows us that God calls us to missions greater than ourselves. Moses was called to free the people of Israel from slavery in Egypt, a monumental task that seemed impossible. However, with God's help, Moses led his people to freedom. This teaches us that God's purposes for our lives often transcend our understanding and ability. He calls us to be part of something bigger, something that can only be accomplished through his strength and guidance. Finally, reflecting on Moses' divine call inspires us to actively seek God's voice in our lives. We must cultivate a life of prayer and meditation, be open to the ways in which God can speak to us, and be willing to respond with faith and obedience. Like Moses, when we respond to God's call, we can witness miracles and transformations in our lives and in the lives of those around us. Secret 2, obedience. Bible quote, Exodus 3:10-12. "Come now, and I will send you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." Then Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" And God said, "Surely I will be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain." God asked Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, a mission that seemed beyond his capabilities. Moses' obedience, despite his doubts and fears, teaches us a profound lesson about the importance of trusting in God's plans, even when they seem impossible. When God called Moses to free the Israelites, Moses was full of uncertainties. He felt inadequate, aware of his limitations and shortcomings. Moses questioned God, asking, "Who am I to go to Pharaoh?" This moment of vulnerability is something many of us can relate to. We often feel that we are not good enough or prepared enough to fulfill the callings that God places on our lives. However, God's response to Moses was simple but powerful. "Surely I will be with you." This divine promise is a reminder that we are not alone when we follow God's plans. His presence is our guarantee of success. Moses' obedience also teaches us that true faith is manifested in action. He could have chosen to remain in the comfort of his life as a shepherd, but instead, he decided to trust God and accept the challenge. Moses' journey to Egypt and his confrontations with Pharaoh were full of obstacles and difficulties, but he persevered. His obedience was not blind, it was based on trust in God and the certainty of his presence. Furthermore, Moses' story highlights the importance of continuous obedience. It's not enough just to obey once. We must be willing to follow God consistently, even when we face new challenges and difficulties. Moses faced resistance from both Pharaoh and his own people, but he remained steadfast in his mission. This perseverance in obedience is crucial to any journey of faith. Through his actions, Moses showed that obedience to God often requires sacrifice and courage. He faced danger and adversity, but his faithfulness never wavered. A significant lesson of Moses' obedience is the transformation it brings. When Moses chose to obey, he not only led the liberation of the Israelites, but also experienced profound personal and spiritual growth. His faith was strengthened, his relationship with God deepened, and he became an inspiring leader for his people. Obedience to God has the power to shape us and prepare us to fulfill his purpose in our lives in ways we never imagined. Moses' obedience also teaches us about the importance of listening to and following God's instructions, even when we don't fully understand his plans. Every plague that hit Egypt, every challenge that Moses faced, was part of a bigger divine plan. Moses had to trust that God was in control, even when circumstances seemed unfavorable. This trust allowed him to move forward with determination and faith. Reflecting on Moses' obedience challenges us to examine our own willingness to follow God's commands. Are we ready to obey, even when it's difficult or inconvenient? Are we willing to put aside our doubts and fears to follow the path God has prepared for us? True obedience requires us to trust God completely, knowing that he works all things for the good of those who love him. Finally, Moses' obedience reminds us that God always equips us for the tasks he calls us to perform. He provided signs and wonders to support Moses, showing that his strength is made perfect in our weakness. When we obey God, we can trust him to give us everything we need to fulfill his purpose, from courage and wisdom to resources and support. In short, Moses' obedience is a powerful example of how faith, trust, and a willingness to follow God can transform our lives and impact those around us. May we learn from Moses to obey God wholeheartedly, trusting that he is always with us, guiding and strengthening us every step of the way. Secret 3, Faith Exodus 14:21-22. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to be driven back by a strong east wind all that night, and the sea became dry, and the waters were divided, and the children of Israel went into the midst of the dry sea, and the waters were a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. When Moses stretched out his hand over the Red Sea, he was facing one of the most challenging situations of his life. The Israelites, fleeing slavery in Egypt, found themselves trapped between Pharaoh's army and the waters of the sea. Humanly speaking, there seemed to be no way out, but Moses believed in the power of God. This act of faith was not just a symbolic gesture, it was a profound demonstration of trust and total dependence on God. Moses could have doubted, he could have given in to despair along with the people, but he chose to trust. When he stretched out his hand over the sea, he was declaring his faith in God's promise to deliver his people. And God responded in a miraculous way. dividing the waters and creating a dry path for the Israelites to pass through safely. This extraordinary event is a powerful testimony to how faith can open doors and create solutions where there seem to be none. Moses' faith teaches us that trusting God implies believing in his promises even when circumstances say otherwise. In our lives, we face many Red Seas, challenges and obstacles that seem insurmountable. It could be a serious illness, financial difficulties, family problems, or personal crises. At such times, we are called to exercise our faith, trusting that God is able to carry us through the challenges, even when we don't see a way out. True faith is not the absence of fear, but the decision to trust God in spite of fear. It is the courage to move forward, believing that God is in control and that he is faithful to keep his promises. Faith helps us to see beyond the immediate difficulties and to wait for God to act. It gives us the strength to persevere and the hope that just as he did with Moses and the Israelites, God can perform miracles in our lives. Faith also has the power to transform our perspective. When we look at situations through the eyes of faith, we begin to see possibilities instead of problems. Faith connects us to God's unlimited power, allowing us to experience his peace and provision even in the storms of life. In short, the story of Moses and the Red Sea is an eternal reminder that faith in God can move mountains and split seas. It is an invitation to all of us to trust God more deeply, knowing that he is able to carry us through any challenge we face. May we, like Moses, stretch out our hands in faith and bear witness to God's transforming power in our lives. Secret 4. Perseverance. Exodus 32:31-32. So Moses returned to the Lord and said, "Now this people have committed a great sin by making themselves gods of gold. Now therefore forgive their sin. If not, blot me out, I pray you, from your book which you have written." The story of Moses is one of the most inspiring when it comes to perseverance. His journey to free the Israelites from Egyptian slavery and lead them through the desert for 40 years is an impressive testimony to determination and unwavering faith. When we read about Moses interceding for the people after the sin of the golden calf, we see a leader who, despite all the adversities and challenges, did not give up on his divine calling. Moses faced countless obstacles during his leadership. From Pharaoh's initial resistance to the constant murmuring and rebellion of the very people he was leading, Moses' mission was fraught with difficulties. Yet he remained steadfast in his faith and his conviction that he was following God's will. Persevering in the midst of adversity is one of the most powerful lessons we can learn from Moses. When the people of Israel worshipped the golden calf, Moses could have given up. He could have walked away, discouraged by the people's constant rebellion and ingratitude. However, he chose to intercede for them before God, showing deep compassion and an unwavering commitment to his mission. Moses went up to the mountain and prayed fervently, asking for forgiveness for the people, even to the point of offering his own life in exchange for divine mercy. This intercession shows the depth of his love for the people and his dedication to the mission entrusted to him by God. Moses' perseverance is also seen in his ability to deal with discouragement and frustration. On several occasions, he faced the Israelites' anger and disobedience, but he always turned to God for strength and guidance. In Numbers 14, when the spies brought back a negative report about the promised land and the people rebelled again, Moses and Aaron fell on their faces in prayer, begging God for mercy. This attitude of turning to God in times of crisis is a powerful example of how we must persevere in our own faith, seeking divine help even when circumstances seem unbearable. Persevering doesn't just mean carrying on despite difficulties, it also implies staying true to our values and convictions. Moses never compromised the principles God had taught him. Even when the pressure was intense, he remained steadfast in his obedience to God. This faithfulness is a reminder to us all that true perseverance is rooted in a deep conviction that we are following the right path, regardless of the difficulties we face. Furthermore, Moses' perseverance had a lasting impact on the people of Israel. His leadership and intercession helped shape the people's identity as a nation dedicated to God. Moses prepared the Israelites to enter the Promised Land, even though he knew that he himself would not enter. He invested his life in a mission greater than himself, demonstrating that true perseverance also involves sacrificing our own desires for the greater good. In short, Moses' perseverance is an inspiring example of how we should face the challenges in our own lives. We must remain firm in our faith, intercede for others, seek God's guidance, and stay true to our principles. Like Moses, when we persevere, we can experience God's strength in our lives and see His promises fulfilled, not only for us, but also for future generations. Secret 5. Intimacy with God. Exodus 33:11. Moses spoke to God face to face like a friend. Moses' intimacy with God is one of the most impressive aspects of his life and leadership. Exodus 33:11 reveals that Moses spoke to God face to face like a friend. This intimate relationship not only transformed Moses' life, but also had a profound impact on the people of Israel. Moses developed this intimacy with God through a life of fervent prayer and constant communion. He sought God's presence in all important decisions and in crisis situations. On Mount Sinai, Moses spent 40 days and 40 nights fasting, receiving the tablets of the law and drawing even closer to the Creator. This time dedicated to prayer and meditation allowed Moses to know God's heart and understand His purposes. Intimacy with God also brought Moses extraordinary wisdom and insight. He not only knew God's laws, but understood the spirit behind them. This deep understanding enabled him to lead the people with justice and compassion, reflecting God's character in his actions. Moses interceded for the people, constantly seeking divine mercy and direction. In Exodus 32:31-32, we see Moses asking God to forgive the people's great sin and, if necessary, to blot out his own name from the book of life, demonstrating deep empathy and self-sacrifice. Seeking an intimate relationship with God transforms our lives by bringing us peace, strength, and purpose. When we draw close to God and seek His presence daily, we begin to hear His voice more clearly and discern His will for our lives. This closeness gives us the confidence that we are not alone and that God is by our side, guiding us every step of the way. Furthermore, intimacy with God allows us to experience His glory in a unique way. Moses, after spending time in God's presence, would come down from Mount Sinai with his face shining, reflecting God's glory. In the same way, when we draw close to God, we begin to reflect His light in our daily lives, impacting those around us. An intimate relationship with God is built through prayer, Bible reading, meditation, and obedience. We must seek God wholeheartedly, sincerely, and humbly, knowing that He wants to reveal Himself to us. When we cultivate this intimacy, our faith is strengthened, and we are enabled to live according to His purposes. In short, Moses' life teaches us that seeking an intimate relationship with God is essential for a full and meaningful life. Through this intimacy, we find direction, wisdom, and a peace that surpasses all understanding. May we, like Moses, seek God's face daily and enjoy a transforming friendship with the Creator. Secret 6. The glory of God, *. Bible quote, Exodus 34:29-30. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai, his face shone. Looking at God transforms us and reflects His glory in us. Moses' experience on Mount Sinai reveals one of the most profound and mysterious aspects of his relationship with God: transformation. by the reflection of divine glory. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the tablets of the law, his face shone so brightly that the Israelites could not look directly at him. This radiance was a reflection of God's glory, a visible manifestation of the inner transformation that Moses experienced when he was in the presence of the Almighty. This extraordinary event teaches us that looking at God profoundly transforms us. God's glory, His holiness and majesty have a transforming power that goes beyond human comprehension. When we seek God's presence with sincerity and humility, we are shaped and renewed by His glory. Moses spent 40 days and 40 nights on the mountain, fasting and praying, completely immersed in communion with God. This time of dedication resulted in a change so profound that it was physically reflected on his face. Transformation for the glory of God is not just an external change, but a renewal of our inner being. In 2 Corinthians 3:18, Paul writes, "And we all, who with unveiled face behold the glory of the Lord, according to His image, are being transformed with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit." This process of transformation is continuous and takes place as we seek God's presence on a daily basis. As we spend time with Him in prayer, Bible study, and worship, we begin to reflect His character in our lives. Furthermore, God's glory enables us to fulfill our purpose. Moses, transformed by God's glory, was enabled to lead the people of Israel with wisdom and authority. In the same way, when we allow God's glory to transform us, we are enabled to live according to His purpose for us, influencing and impacting those around us in a positive way. Seeking God's glory also gives us an eternal perspective. In a world full of uncertainties and challenges, God's presence offers us peace and security. God's glory reminds us that we belong to a kingdom that is not of this world and that our true citizenship is in heaven. This perspective helps us to live with hope and determination, knowing that we are being transformed into the image of Christ. In summary, Moses' experience on Mount Sinai is a powerful reminder that looking to God transforms us and reflects His glory in us. When we seek God's presence with dedication, we are renewed inwardly and enabled to live according to His purpose. May we, like Moses, seek God's glory and allow His light to shine through us, impacting the world around us in a meaningful way. What does this story mean to you? Have you ever felt God's call in your life? Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's learn from each other and grow together in our spiritual journey. Have you ever been in a situation where you needed to exercise your faith like Moses did? Tell us in the comments. Your story could inspire many others. I hope these secrets from Moses' life have inspired you to look to God more in your daily life. Remember, when we look to God, we are transformed and reflect His glory. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next meetings. See you tomorrow, and may God bless your life abundantly.